Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about something I've been ever so slightly going on about over the last year, but I realise it hasn't been something I've addressed through a YouTube video. So I thought it might be useful to do that because I know that a lot of you prefer video form to long essays. And today I want to talk about something I call the school wound. School wound is a concept that helps us recognise that there were specific incidences or a shaping from a general punitive culture of school that affected us in ways that still impacts how we move around our world today as adults. I honestly believe that a huge amount of what we have normalised in our behaviours and our emotions and our ways of being are actually school wounds. They are rooted in these incidences or through spending our formative years in a pretty toxic culture. So things like people pleasing, addiction to busyness, warped relationship stuff like competitiveness or jealousy or not holding boundaries or fear of speaking out, suppressed creativity, inane compliance to authority. All of these things are not just typical human behaviour. I fully believe that if we lived lives outside of school when we were kids, these things wouldn't be so prevalent. I'm really passionate about talking about school wounds because I think in our bid to bring a lot of healing to our inner children and in our bid to build a world that is more empathetic for the children we're raising, we have put way too much focus on the home and on parenting. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big, massive believer in respectful parenting. I've spent the last 9 years writing, creating courses in order to help us lean more into respect and empathy and connection within our homes. Absolutely. But we have got it way out of proportion. Because in the home, we've just got individual parents trying their best with their individual kids, often just muddling through but doing the best they can. But age 5, we institutionalize this stuff. Age 5, all of society goes, yep, it's a really good idea to raise kids in a spirit of conditional rewards, in a spirit of stress and busyness and overscheduling and pressure, in a spirit of disconnection and separation, of top-down hierarchical. The bigger you are, the more powerful you are, the better you know and the more control you can have. You know, we institutionalize it through school. Sure, it definitely happens in the home, but I'd say a lot of it is just because people maybe don't know better or they've just got all these kind of their own wounds and God, everybody really does just want to love their kids, but sometimes just suck at it. And then age 5, through the schooling system, we build a structure around the very same stuff and we go, yep, we are collectively, through the system, going to raise our kids with this. And I just feel like we just let schools off the hook way too much and put way too much onus on the parents. So let's talk about the school wound and let's talk a little bit about how it shows up and where it came from. So I've got these into 6 brackets now. This comes from a much longer piece that I've written. The first one is our addiction to busyness and our sort of subconscious addiction to stress. So hands up if you find it really hard to sit down and relax and just take leisure for the sake of leisure. Hands up if you're constantly overscheduling, trying to squeeze way too many things in, and then feel guilty when you do take a little bit of a break or you do choose rest. Yeah, it's pretty normal, in society, but it's not actually ordinary human behaviour. I believe this way of being comes from spending our years from 5 to 18 plus, many of us, in an environment that was constantly scheduled with only a sort of very short break for lunch. Not just the overscheduling, but also, in my own secondary years, it was moving constantly from a state of testing to preparing for a test to being tested. Like, there was always something on the horizon that I was working for, as if without that kind of external pressure, I just wouldn't be able to come up with anything good or anything effective. So that's a really common school wound and how it shows up. Another one is having a really problematic relationship with praise and criticism. So it's quite broad because it comes out in each of us quite differently. So some people can't handle any criticism whatsoever. Like, even the most constructive, beautiful feedback is felt like really, really painfully, because there's trauma from incidences when we were at school where criticism often actually meant being shamed or even punished. In school, praise is used as a currency. It's used to get students to do things for somebody else. So it's not sincere, it's not authentic. And that gives us a kind of entangled relationship with praise as adults. We really want it, can't handle it when it comes, and then feel bad for wanting praise and wanting to have good feedback. Kind of, we feel needy and weird about it. And also we find it hard, some of us, to do things that then don't get what we feel should be a kind of worthy praise. And we just basically have all of these, we just have complicated relationships with feedback. And I believe that's because we very much complicate this for huge years of our early life. Praise, or the lack of it, or criticism, often mean really quite dire things for our childhood selves. They can often mean isolation, public humiliation, being shouted at, being kept behind at school. It's never just sort of like standalone feedback. So that's number 2. Number 3 is maybe one of the saddest ones for me. Actually, they're all a little bit sad, but this is one I see really commonly, and it is grown people who expect rejection. So grown people, I don't know why I'm saying grown people, not just adults, but adults who find it so hard to make new friends because they expect people to reject them, or expect people to just look at their flaws or criticize them, or expect people to be too busy for new friends, sort of tiptoe around social situations feeling completely unworthy of the other people there, unable to make a bid for connection, perhaps feeling always like they're being compared to other people, or perhaps doing the comparing, constantly judging other people and evaluating your position in relation to them. And to me, it feels really obvious that that is a wound from being raised in an environment amongst our peers where we were constantly being pitted against each other through tests, through competitions, through our names being on the board, charts being on the walls where you always know where you are, you know who the cleverest is, you know who the most creative and artistic is. You're constantly in this sort of pressure cooker environment where you are up against other people, and in that kind of pressure, cliques form and little groups form and bullyish behaviour forms, because, by the way, we've institutionalised bullying with that kind of dominant, hierarchical, shame-based, punitive thing that we have going on with teachers against their students. So we kind of institutionalise bullying, and we're surprised that bullying happens between peers, but it does, because it's all so pressurised. And so we've all got these incidences of being rejected and excluded and bullied, and then we bring that into our adult years. And I think probably most adults are really quite lonely and they would like more friends and more social connection, but we've brought all of our wounds into it. Feels all quite heavy. I hope that as I rush through this YouTube video it doesn't feel like I'm being blasé about it. I actually really feel this quite deeply as I'm talking about it, and I really want to extend empathy to you if this is resonating with you. So there are wounds of creativity. Kristen Alston, who wrote a book called Wounded by School, found that a wound of creativity was the #1 wound that people as adults found affected them the most from school. And this is if you feel your creativity is locked away and you can't access it, where you've heard that there are creative people and non-creative people and you are not one of the creative people, or if you are a creative person but you find it really hard to do it for fun. And all of this comes from an environment where we're getting constant feedback about the right answers, the right way of being, the right solution. Because obviously creativity isn't just about artisticness, it's about kind of your curiosity and your ability to come up with imaginative thinking patterns. And in school you really learn one way of thinking, the one way to get the answer, and often you have to show your working. So even if you've got the right answer, it doesn't count because you might have gone off the page with your creative solution finding. This one is rooted in so many different things. You might have just had one art teacher. You know, my friend, one teacher said to her that she couldn't sing, and then she just like never sung again. You know, so little things like that can have so much impact. And then we just go through our adult lives going, oh, I'm not a creative person. Final one I have packaged under the banner of problematic relationship with trust and authority, because some of us are really afraid of authority and will comply no matter what to any voice that seems like it's an authority. We just want to put our trust elsewhere, and obviously that comes from an early lifetime of having people in authority who told you what to do, where to be, and when to do it, and how to do it. So we're constantly like, as adults, like, who's in charge here? Who's going to tell me what to do? But the inverse of that is even sadder, and that is the inability to trust ourselves and trust our own wisdom and trust our own guidance. I believe that this hierarchical nature of the school environment completely undermines our trust in ourselves. You know, when I was at school, I had to get a slip of paper to just go to the toilet, which is a bodily need. I wasn't trusted to just listen to my own body and act upon my bodily needs. So for years and years and years, all of my internal messaging, my internal thoughts were undermined as I looked for other people to tell me what to do. And it's taken me years and years to find that center of authority and that kind of compass within myself to guide me and my behaviors. I think that maybe of all of them is the most problematic one, this idea that we can't trust ourselves, that we're not enough, that we're not worthy. And you know what? I'm sorry, but I'm going to take that whole thing and I'm going to dump it at the foot of the school system. It is not good enough. What are we doing? So that's the end. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in this, I am holding an online workshop on the 1st of November called Healing Your School Wound. We're going to do a deep dive into this. We're going to look at some of the brain science around why the school wounds keep on perpetuating in our lives. We're going to look at powerful ways to transform those school wounds and bring healing to them. It's an absolute value-packed workshop, so I would love for you to be there. I want everyone to come to it. Click on the link below for all of those details. Meanwhile, I'd love to hear from you about your school wounds, how they show up, and how you are healing them. Thank you so much for being here. I love doing these videos and I love that you watch them. Thank you and stay radical. Mwah.